Okay, thank you very much for coming to this session. So we are very happy to invite Dr. Kate Eric to give a keynote talk. Let me firstly introduce a little bit more about you, although Nancy introduced you in the morning. So Kate is the Assistant Director at Nord Anglia Education, and she's responsible for curriculum development. Okay. And Kate is currently working on a big project. It's called the Metacognition Project. And it's a 2-year project working with 27 schools globally to investigate how education technology can be used to support students' metacognitive development and growth. And Kate is based at Nord Anglia in Hong Kong. It's very close to us. And she works closely with teachers and leaders across the world. Although she's based in Hong Kong, she works with teachers and leaders worldwide on teacher professional learning, implementation of new technologies in schools, and the development of classroom cultures for effective learning. And before joining Nord Anglia, Kate was a school improvement advisor for Hampshire local authority in the UK. And in this role, she worked with teachers and leadership teams to improve outcomes in primary and secondary schools. Kate has a master's and a PhD degrees in teacher professional development. She has rich teaching experience, and she has over 20 years of experience in education. So today, Kate will talk about technology, innovation, and system change. So Kate, we look forward to your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you about this, because this is a story of the last 2 years. It's a story of our experience of implementing technology, and I'm going to tell you the good and the bad, what worked and what didn't. Just to say, the evaluations that are part of what I'm going to talk about today were done with Rose Luckin and her team, and so a lot of the insights that you see here are not just mine. And they don't just come from Rose and her team, they come from the teachers who collaborated so hard with us and the students who studied with us over this period of time. So I'm in debt to all of their efforts. Okay, so before I worked in professional development and before I worked in school improvement, I was an English teacher. And I was an English teacher teaching secondary school students. And when I taught English, there was nothing I loved teaching more than structure. I loved the structure of sentences, I loved the structure of poems, I loved the structure of stories. And there's nobody who does the structure of stories, the balance and patterns of stories better than Kurt Vonnegut. And he was the author of Fahrenheit 451. And this is his failed master's thesis. He put together an idea that every story fits into one of 8 types. There are 8 story structures in the world. Now, he submitted this for his master's and he did not pass, but the idea is excellent. And so these are the 8 types of story structure. And you can see them on screen, and I suggest looking them up after this talk. I'm not going to go into detail on these, but they are fascinating. The most popular one, Man in a Hole, is the most popular story structure in the world. It's the story structure that sits behind The Godfather. It's the story structure of Dirty Dancing. It's the story structure of The Hobbit. It's the story structure of every sports and dance movie you will have seen, where it starts well, goes really badly in the middle, they fail the semi-final, and then come through triumphant at the end. That is Man in the Hole. It is also the story of human response to change, especially change when it is forced upon us. It is our story of our struggle with adversity when things are beyond our control. So you will notice that the structure of Man in Whole is the same as the structure of the Fenton-Raskino technology adoption curve. It starts well, it goes terribly in the middle, and then it improves at the end. So the curve goes like this. You're launching a new thing. You're launching your new technology, and because it is EdTech, everybody is extremely excited about it. There are two axes on this curve. Your vertical axis on the left is hype, the level of expectation. Your horizontal axis is time, okay? Everybody comes in and really, really wants to know how they're going to use this exciting new thing. So expectations go high, fast. AI is doing this at the moment, right? It's right up there, peak of inflated expectations. This is going to change the world. And then it goes right down, and it goes really far down in the trough of disillusionment. It doesn't match how you think it's going to go. People become extremely frustrated. Everybody wants to stop using it. And then slowly we revert. We go up the slope of enlightenment, and then eventually hit the plateau of productivity at the end. That's the story of technology adoption. It's also the story of this talk. So we're going to start at the beginning, over there, where the red star is, in April 2020. That was the beginning of digital Nord Anglia. So, let me give you a bit of context. I need a bit of hand for this bit, but I work for Nord Anglia Education, and you might not have heard of us, okay? We are a premium international schools group. We have 85 schools. We operate in 5 global regions. We believe in an experiential, social, personal education for our students. And it looks something like this. Okay, so that's us. I'm watching this now, post-COVID. I watched that video and I noticed just how many of our students are outside and how many of them are together and how many of them are interacting socially. And then when COVID-19 happened, all of that went behind a screen. And that was huge because we believed in this personalized experiential education. And how do you do that when everybody's by themselves and they have to learn through a computer? But we wanted to be positive about this. This was an opportunity to be grasped. We're a big, diverse group of schools. How could we collaborate and create an experiential education enabled by technology that would still be something brilliant? So that was the impetus for the project that we started, Project Digital Nord Anglia. Our mission, so this was a few years ago, was to accelerate student growth by using technology and data to unlock the power of our global community of teachers and personalize every student's learning. Our aim was to look at how technology could enhance teaching and learning experiences, and we wanted to do it together with our community. We wanted to collaborate with our teachers, We wanted to work with our schools to make sure that we were doing something that felt right for their community context. When we spoke to our schools and teachers about what we were going to do and what we wanted something that would give them technology straight away at the moment that they most needed it. It was urgent. It was everybody all of a sudden flipped to a screen-mediated form of learning. So what could we provide them with? We went for this. We were going to provide them with interactive learning in this platform online that would give in-the-moment formative feedback, that would allow teacher and student interaction in the moment, and a library of lesson resources linked to a global curriculum framework. So we have many different curricula because we operate across so many different countries, and we needed to align those together. It was something that was intended to work in class if students were in school, or at home if they were learning at home and needed to be behind the screen. So we started with 9 schools across different global regions. And we went for English, maths, and science resources in years 3 and 7, so grades 2 and 6. And this was the idea that these would be the subjects that needed to be prioritized because these were the subjects that were core. So this is where we started. And this is the platform that we created. You can see we had a set of resources. The teacher was able to display it on screen. They were able to involve the students in the normal kind of teaching instruction that you would have had, and it could be accessed in a hybrid way. So this could be accessed the same way at home as it could be in a classroom. Now, when we put it together, the focus was also on how could we understand where our students were in the moment in their learning, even if we couldn't be with them personally. So we put together what we call confidence checks. So the idea was that students would self-report at the start and potentially at the end of a lesson how confident they were feeling. And then teachers would be able to adapt their tuition in response. So you could go up and personally help a student who was feeling less confident, or you could send them a message. You could group together confident students with not very confident students. You could have a super confident group of students who were doing an extension task, or a not very confident group who were working with a teaching assistant. That was the plan behind confidence checks. It enabled formative feedback instantly, which a teacher could see on their iPad, and also that kind of in-the-moment grouping and differentiation. At the bottom, you'll see we did the same with knowledge checks. Students would do a quick multiple choice question, and on the basis of that, we could see if they had misconceptions and the teacher would need to intervene. On the right-hand side were our resources. We produced hundreds of lesson resources, some videos like the one you can see there, which was about pollination, and then others which were more about a social experience in the classroom. Because even though this was something that was going to work on screen, we also wanted it to be about social learning. So when our students were in lessons, the resources were designed to help them learn with each other and do practical hands-on tasks. So you can see here that this student has made himself an anatomically realistic model of a flower. These were the principles by which we were designing what we were doing. So we were building that software as we were going. We launched it as a minimum viable product. So we launched and iterated. And the idea was we'd bring our teachers with us and respond to their feedback and then iterate the technology as we went. So here you can see the initial concept and the planning, went into design and development. We went straight into implementation as soon as we had something that teachers could use. They used it, gave us feedback, and the feedback was a button in the tool itself, as well as surveys that they could use and respond to. And then we'd evaluate their feedback and move into the next cycle. We'd replan, we'd design something new. And this was intended to go on throughout the year so that we could get better in response to what our teachers and our students needed. This was the plan. It was co-design, it was collaboration. We were extremely excited about it. At the end of year one, having gone through this process, we did an evaluation. And so Rose's team at EVR helped us to evaluate how our teachers felt about this new technology, how they felt about the work that we'd put in, the co-design that we'd done, our participatory methodology. And this was the first graph we got back. So the title of this graph is DNA Lessons, Digital Nord Anglia Lessons Enhance My Teaching. The response was not positive. Anything that goes down is not good. This was teachers telling us that actually there were 8 schools that we surveyed here, and these were their responses. You can see there are 3 that are above the line. All the rest are below. Overall, only 36% of our grade 2 year 3 teachers and 29% of our grade 6 year 7 teachers told us that these lessons had enhanced their teaching. The rest said that they hadn't. This was an interesting response for us. And the most negative ones were often the teachers that were the most technologically confident. What we found was the most positive responses often came from schools that potentially didn't have as much technology in place, but our teachers and students who were, this was teachers, our teachers who were adept with technology, they didn't feel that what we were giving them was enhancing their practice. When we asked them about the quality of the resources, this is what they told us. They would like to be able to change the content of the lessons. And some of them, it was a mixed response, felt that these were relevant to their teaching. And this was interesting because we'd launched with an MVP, a minimum viable product, which meant that teachers weren't able to edit what was in there. They could use what they had, but they weren't able to change it. We told them they could add in whatever they wanted to add into their lessons, but actually they couldn't change it in the software themselves. So whilst they liked the resources and they were considered to be high quality, they weren't able to change it to meet the needs of their own students in their class. So they wanted to be able to adapt. They felt like they wanted more editability and autonomy. Teachers had a middling response to confidence check-ins. They weren't sure about them, but students loved them. And this was interesting. So the more we asked students about the confidence check-ins, the more they told us it made them feel more confident about their learning. Now, this might have been because we asked them how confident they were, and they were asked to think about it for the first time. However, there was a difference between the positivity of the student response and the lukewarm potential negativity of the teacher response. Overall, we learned this. The combination of an in-session school community and a launch and iterate agile approach to technology were not a natural fit. Teachers were put in a difficult situation. We were giving them something that was brand new and basic, and we thought that their feedback and us working together would give them something that they needed. But what we actually learned was that teachers were put in a difficult situation because they were choosing to use something that they didn't feel was quite yet ready for the high quality of education that they wanted to deliver to their clients. This was a difficult thing for us in our learning about co-design, because if you want to co-design with people, you need to start with something at the beginning and then co-design it up to where it needs to be. And that process for our teachers was difficult at the start. A lack of functionality limited teachers' autonomy and ownership over the process of lesson delivery, because we were giving them things that were ready-made. We thought we were lessening workload, especially during COVID. We thought we'd give them some resources and we'd be helping. But actually, what teachers found is that because these were the same for all, they interpret it as standardization. By giving them the resources to use, they felt like we were potentially telling them what to do. And even though we did a lot of professional development and we told them this wasn't the case, and they could be adapted as wanted, there's a danger that when you give people one thing and say they need to use it and give it a go, they interpret it as us trying to standardize. Consultation takes time and effort. We wanted to participate with our community. We wanted to do it together with them. But doing it together takes time. And these were people with a full-time job. Teachers are busy. And when we asked them to contribute in meetings after school, they wanted to contribute. However, this was additional time taken away from their planning and their marking. And there are also differences between how schools and technology development manage strategic leadership of change. Our schools plan their strategic plans 5 years ahead, maybe 3. They're looking far ahead in terms of how they're going to manage the implementation of the different strategies they want to put in place. Our technology development was working in 2-week sprints. Every 2 weeks, we were looking ahead to see what the very next thing was that we wanted to develop in the tech. The difference in those timeframes is enormous. When we went to our schools and said that we wanted them to participate this academic year, they told us that their planning for this academic year had been done 5 months ago, back before the summer. That's when they planned out what they were going to do. And we missed them because we were trying to move quickly in an agile way, doing it together and being rapid in our development of change. But actually, that's not how schools work. And we needed to align those timeframes. We needed to communicate much, much, much earlier about our intentions if we wanted to keep our schools on board. So that was year 1. We're at the end of year 1. Year 1 was 9 schools. Yeah, English, maths and science, years 3 and 7. We're still in the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, we're a year in. Our schools are still in lockdown. Year 2, 27 schools. Okay, this is a big project. We're investing in it. We're excited about it. We've got funding. We've got all of our schools. We've told them we're doing it. We go to 27. We changed the focus. We're not doing English, maths and science anymore because what our teachers had told us was they didn't need resources for English and maths. They already had those and it was different in every curriculum. It was very specific. They liked the science in primary, elementary, so we kept those, but they wanted to focus on skills and metacognition. They wanted to look at something that would be relevant across all subject areas, and any teacher could integrate the way that they wanted to into their curriculum planning. So we started to work on that. Year 1 had been about the technology. We're going to develop the technology first. Year 2 was about the pedagogy first. Let's think, how can we make the pedagogy really, really sound and put that at the center? The education comes first. I was delighted about this. I'm an education analyst. I'm like, that's the way around. Let's go. Our metacognitive pedagogy was this. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how we developed this because this is a story about system change and technology. But when we approached metacognition, which was a concept we developed with Rose and her team, we were looking at how we could develop 21st century skills through the use of specific strategies. We actually used Harvard, and we still use, Harvard Project Zero thinking routines. And we assign a thinking routine to each of our learner ambition skill strengths. There are actually 3 strengths per skill. And in doing so, we provide our students with a way to think in a particular way before we require them to act in a particular way. So if we want them to think in a compassionate way, act in a compassionate way, first they have to think in a compassionate way. And they need to know the strategy by which they do so. So we had this metacognitive approach where our students would take ownership of these strategies, develop their self-awareness, develop their self-regulation, and be able to transfer it across different areas. We were integrating these wherever schools wanted to integrate them. They could put them anywhere in the curriculum they wanted to. We were modeling it in the science curriculum in primary. So we integrated this with our resources in the lesson tool I showed you in primary. And then teachers could use it wherever else they wanted to in the secondary year groups, but also in the elementary years. This was what the platform looked like by year 2. It's come a really long way from year 1. you can see that it looks far more sophisticated. This is a creative lesson. The I here means that teachers were able to hide things they didn't want to use. They were able to skip through. They could review, the resources, a button there, and they could send feedback at the top. Students also had their own view of this platform. So here we are. We're in our design thinking. We've done the first couple of loops in year one, and we are co-designing with a software company, and we're working with other teams on the development of our pedagogy. We're going into year two thinking we're here. Yeah, let's go. We've got a new approach. We've got loads more schools. We've got all of this stuff happening. We're ready to roll. Our teachers are here. Okay, so we're rolling. And if we look at our technology adoption curve, a little bit of foreshadowing now, you can see what's going to come next, right? So here we go. This was about last September. We went through year two. Our 27 schools were on board. And at the end of year two, we did an evaluation. We were still iterating, but we hit problems that year with the software. We wanted to build in editability. We wanted our teachers to feel like they had autonomy of delivery. But the pace of software development did not match the pace of our needs. It turns out building tech takes time, and it's not always as quick as you'd like it to be. At the end of year two, we did an evaluation. And this is what our evaluation showed us. So I'm going to have 3 graphs, and I'm going to talk through them very briefly, but I want you to look at them, right? Because these are the 3 graphs that have really influenced the way that I think about implementation of technology and system change. They've been hugely influential for me and my team when we've worked on this. Now, what you can see is this is about teacher understanding of those learner ambition skills and metacognition. The yellow is where the teachers understand how the digital Nord Anglia lessons have improved students' metacognition. The green is whether it's improved student progress, and the yellow is, has it improved my students' metacognition? The important piece to notice here is where it says number of lessons, these are the number of lessons our teachers have delivered overall. So some have been in the project for 1 year, some have been in the project for 2. And we've got 1 to 5, 6 to 10, all the way up to 21 or more. Again, your middle line will mark the level of value that our teachers assign, whether it's positive or negative. Okay, graph 2. This is our teachers' views about the value of DNA lessons. Whether the content activities are relevant to my teaching, whether DNA lessons allow them to spend time on lesson preparation, so are we saving them time? And do those lessons enhance their teaching? Okay, there's one more. I'll ask you what you notice after we've done the next one, okay? This is teachers' view about the usability of DNA lessons and their confidence using it, whether they're confident using the DNA lesson tool in Brown, and whether they felt that that platform, the DNA platform I showed them, is intuitive and easy to use. So, has anybody noticed anything? What have you noticed?
So the more they use it, the more they like it.
The more they use it, the more they like it. So every single one of these graphs goes up at the end hugely, right? So you can see this one right up at 21 or more. This one, again, shoots up at 21 or more. And again, this third graph, right at the top end, we kept seeing this pattern. This pattern hits at lesson 21. Okay, why? What is going on at lesson 21 that changed the way that our teachers were feeling about the use of technology? Why was this such a clear tipping point? Because on 16 to 20, we're down.
It seems to be the worst.
It's the worst, right? 16 to 20 is the worst by far, but 21 or more is really high.
It's the curve.
Yeah.
It's the curve, right? Here we go. It's the curve. So what we're seeing is at the start, on our first lessons, we're going up the peak of inflated expectations. And then we go all the way down our trough of disillusionment, hitting the bottom around 16 to 20 lessons. And then we spike back up on lesson 21. Fascinating. So, why lesson 21? Why is this a turning point? Why do we hit that enormous shift from lesson 20 to lesson 21? What's going on there? As an additional piece of information, our teachers were delivering approximately one lesson a week. That's how often they were using the technology, one lesson a week. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to talk to the person next to you, and then I want a suggestion. Why lesson 21? What happens at that moment in time? I'm mindful of time for our online colleagues as well, and so yeah, that was just a little opportunity for a think, share there. But has anybody got any thoughts around why? Why was this happening then? And I don't expect anybody to know the answer. This was a stunning finding for us as well. This is more a little bit of collective wonderment potentially about why this is happening. Any ideas or any thoughts?
It sounds good on the total duration. Maybe, that there was some point at which there was something like a half term, or there was a school event, or there was something that made everybody pitch back in more happy than they were up to that point.
Again, potentially. Duration is a good point. So if you're thinking about, and I go back one.
About 5 months.
Right.
Yeah.
5 months.
Yeah, it's approximately 5 months. And in the school year, when you think about how you'd have a holiday.
Yeah.
Right. It's approximately 6 months worth of time, right? Lesson 21 marks the point of about 6 months worth of technology adoption. That's something we reflected on. If we're on approximately one lesson a week, then is it that you come out of the trough of disillusionment at approximately the 6 month mark? Yeah.
So, one question, because one lesson per week, right?
Ish, yeah.
Right. So one thing which I'm wondering, which because when we use technology,
Yeah.
the first, even if I understand technology, new technology adoption requires me to develop new skills. So I sometimes have to relearn, which I already know, within that technology.
Okay.
So what I'm wondering is 21, of course, it seems arbitrary, But it is understandable from the perspective that teachers in the beginning, first several lessons, must be cursing you guys. Why force this on us?
Yeah.
And then once they know they can't get out of it, then they are forced to learn the affordances. And then later at the end, they start enjoying it because those are basic skills they already mastered. And then when the holiday hits, right? That's my hypothesis, maybe a conjecture, that they may have the time to rethink about this tool from a fresh perspective. Because I do realize if you keep doing something again and again and you're failing, you're frustrated. And then you need a break. And then you come back at it.
So this might be the marker of when somebody comes back after having been away from it and rediscovers a new level of fluency, essentially.
Maybe rewiring happened.
Maybe we did have a colleague who said that this potentially overlays teachers' feelings in the school year. When you start in September, you feel positive, then you get tired and it goes down and it comes back up. I've had teachers who've been through a school year and they're now, we did this around about April time. Are they coming out of that? If they've been using it the whole year long, are they starting to feel those feelings of positivity at the end? I mean, we don't know. We don't have a hard and fast answer here. But what we are seeing are these kinds of insights. Increased usage of technology results in a more positive response and recognition of impact. So we did wonder whether it was just our early adopters, our enthusiastic teachers who were positive. They were using it more because they loved technology, so they were reporting more value at the end. But when we talked to the team, Rose's team, who did this, they said, actually, no, because I had 2 years worth of data. So they said it went the other way around. The more teachers used it, the more they liked it. It was the inverse relationship to the one we thought it might be. We looked at a piece of research by Fexius and Zellweger that said faculties who commit more time to integration had a greater success in adoption. This isn't a surprise. The more time we leave for something, the more likely it is to succeed. But we were really seeing this. So that if you did more, if you put more time into implementation, the more likely you were to perceive value in it. And technology adoption takes at least 6 months to embed in practice. That is a big deal for educators. If you start your 6 months from September, you are not seeing the fluency necessarily until March. That's ages, especially if your examinations start in May, then you've used almost an entire school year. That's a big commitment of time and effort, and it's worth thinking on that if we're considering how we often launch new initiatives every school year and the fatigue that this can result in for teachers if they're not feeling fluent and confident until 6 months in. So these are our headlines. This is what the project has taught us so far. Practice makes perfect. Every school, every leader, every teacher has their own experience of change, and they are all in different places. So that curve that we've been talking about today, everybody's in a different place. And how do you support everybody when they're in a different place? If you've got somebody in the peak of inflated expectations, but somebody in the trough of disillusionment, they're in a very different position in terms of how you want to speak to them and how you want to help them develop. It takes time and commitment at every single level to build positivity with school leaders, with teachers, with students. Everybody needs to make that investment if you're going to get through the period of time to when you really start reaping the rewards of implementing new technology. And community helps strengthen teacher motivation and sense of ownership. This is something that we learned together, that we needed to share our successes, share our examples of best practice, because if you've got teachers who aren't seeing the benefit of what you're doing, they need to be able to look ahead along that curve and see what the future looks like for them. Something that we felt was successful was our professional development. And this is what our approach to professional development looked like. Our project leaned heavily on a community of practice model for professional development. So we developed a professional learning community, which was about shared experience. We held lots and lots of webinars. We invited teachers to come along and did live demonstrations. We had online resources that teachers could access asynchronously at any time on a shared website. And then they could also come to group events. We had forums, we had sharing of best practice in schools. However, on its own, a community is not enough, because a community assumes that everybody is in the same place in relation to change, and they aren't. Everybody is in a different place in terms of how they feel, particularly with technology adoption, when we think about how confident people are feeling, or how fluent they are in their use of technology, or even just how many lessons they've taught for whatever reason, or how much they've used the tech. So we also had a model of individual support. We had local leadership in every school. We had a champion that drove the change in every single one of the schools involved. They are still such important advocates for all of our work. Without a strong local leader, nothing we do will succeed. We wanted to meet schools where they are. And now that we've conceptualized why, and this has been our conceptualization of why, we know that you can't say to schools, this is what you need to be doing right now, if they're all in a different place. You need to go to them. If they're in the trough of disillusionment, you can't go in with some rallying positive support, because that's really not what they want to hear right now. What they want is troubleshooting. They're having a hard time. So you need to go in and give them the kind of support that teachers need at the moment that they need it. So this is resource heavy. This means you need to do individual meetings with individual teachers, grade levels, individual schools, whatever people need to make sure that you can get them further along and take them through the process. It's individual and relationship driven. The more relationships you have, the more you understand where people are, and everybody is motivated to do well. But the more that you can have an honest conversation about what people are finding difficult, the more likely you are to be successful. And that involves relationships. So this is our professional development model. We have a team who works on school engagement. They are fantastic, and they are still doing an excellent job at combining these two models. Before I go to questions, I asked this team the other day, I'm like, okay, we've looked at 2 years of data. Where are we now? Where are we? So it's been 2 years, right? And we started over there and we went up to the top. And after having all of this data back from the evaluations that the Educate Ventures did, I said, where do you feel we've got to? And they put us here. This is a great moment. Yeah. Right? We have come out of the trough of disillusionment. And one day I want to do this with the teachers in our community as well. I want to ask them, if this has been our journey, where have you got to? It would be a great piece of sense making together and a good way to get their feedback about where they think they are. Now look at the top. Part of the Fenn and Ruskino curve that I didn't talk about before are the exit points. Now, as schools travel along the curve at certain points, how as anybody travels along the curve, they might start feeling that the effort that they're putting into technology adoption is not worth the reward. And at that point, they drop out. So exit point 1 is where the inflated expectations feel like too much. The chasm down into the trough of disillusionment takes us to exit point 2, where things haven't gone according to plan and you lose them. Exit point 3 is when you're almost out, but sadly, just before you get there, people decide that potentially, for whatever reason, it's not worth continuing. So we're here. We still have 27 schools. So we're going into year 3. We have rebranded. We are now the Metacognition Project. We have 27 schools. We are still doing science for years 3 to 6. We are still focusing on skills and metacognition. But we have moved away from our technology. We realized that we couldn't keep pace with what we needed to provide our teachers with. Our teachers work in international schools where our parents pay fees, and have high expectations for the quality of education that will be provided. And that's true in all schools. It's not just true in private schools. And our teachers were put in a double bind. They wanted to deliver the high quality education for their students and for the parents who want their students to be there. And at the same time, they wanted to trial something new and innovative. But squeezed in the middle was that teacher trying to stretch themselves both ways. And we couldn't ask them to do that any longer. We couldn't ask them to keep iterating with us. So we've moved to off-the-shelf software solutions that have been designed specifically for excellent in-class experience, and those are formative and Nearpod. We've got two because we need full global reach, and not all of them we were able to use in all countries. We're now a research project, and for the next 2 years, we're working on learning about the impact of our approach. We've partnered with Boston College. We've got a mixed methods methodology, which is going to combine survey data with the data that we get out of our lesson tools, and also some action research projects that will be designed and implemented by the teachers themselves. We want a partnership research approach. We're still keen to hear our teachers, their voices, and the impact that the project is having on their teaching practice, whatever their experience of change. That's me. Questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Eric. It's a really impressive project with great impact. It's yeah, continue one. Year 3 is coming.
Yes.
So let's see if you have questions.
So, very inspiring presentation. Thank you. Now, one question I'm wondering, because in the year 1 and year 2, your students gave wonderful feedback.
Yes, I did.
And teachers are, I'm not sure they didn't give a very good feedback, but one thing that is striking is if teachers think they're not doing good, but students think they are doing a wonderful job. Why this, I would say, dichotomy in terms of understanding of this learning process?
It's really interesting. Our students have always given us positive feedback. I haven't shared the student feedback as we went through. I should have told you, maybe it was uniformly like that. It was always positive. I'm not sure why the discrepancy. I mean, one thing we need to be mindful of is that technology in schools is exciting and students love using the iPads. And so whilst there is self-report, the self-report was very, very positive with our younger students. The iPad day was a big day. With our older students, it was slightly more nuanced. And so especially in year 1, when they were thinking about the value of it, there was more mixed feedback there. I mean, it was positive this year, the student feedback, when we looked at the data. It's interesting, and that's something we're going to need to dig into more. I'm hoping that our research project will help us tease that out, because we're doing surveys and focus groups with students and teachers, and it'll be interesting to think about how we measure the impact of what we're doing and how we incorporate those different measures when often they report quite different things.
And what about the parents?
We haven't asked the parents yet because it's small scale, being done as part of regular classroom practice. We would love to ask the parents, and that will be a really important next step for us, to get their input on what we're doing. But because they haven't been directly participating, it's harder to ask them about the impact of the work. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Let's
Yeah.
this
Oh,
one
sorry.
first. So Sunny online asks these questions.
Is Nord Anglia Education using the IB curriculum?
Yes, so we lots of our schools use IB. Some of them, so our school in Hong Kong uses IB for the IBDP. Some of the schools involved in the project use the IB right the way through. So they go from PYP to NYP to IB. And so it's a range. We have lots of different curricula, but many of them go to IB. Mm-hmm.
So I think this question is from someone who's interested.
Yeah, so That's interesting, and this is something we've been considering. I think we're moving away from subject content to a consideration of how to develop student metacognition, because we're interested in preparing students for the world they will go into in the future. And as Rose mentioned in her talk earlier, one of the things that we can do for our students to help prepare them is give them a sense of those skills that go beyond traditional curricula, which I know the IB also does really well. And also sort of a metacognitive sense of what the purpose of this is for them, to give students the agency to be able to use their learning and know what the relevance of it is for them as they go into their future careers.
Thank you.
So first, thanks a lot for interesting and inspiring sharing. It's really interesting. And my question is about the evaluation stage. And I want to know more details about your 2 years evaluation, particularly for the year 1, because I know you have shown some details about year 2. And my question is, like, what dimensions did you include in your questionnaire? And did you use an existing questionnaire, or have you referred to any theoretical framework about these dimensions you include in your evaluation question? Thank you.
Good question. Some of it I might not be able to answer, and I might actually defer to Rose for some of that, because whilst we did come up with some of the questions, the design of the evaluation was done by Rose's EVR team. Rose, are you able to comment on that one?
We used a variety I can send you a link to the various different pieces of research that informed us. That's probably easier than.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But yes, I'll make a note.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, me first. Yes.
Thank you so much for the very inspiring presentation. So my question is, your sharing is more about quantitative results, and you noted that 21 is a very interesting point for teachers to shift their perceptions of the PD. And I, as a qualitative researcher, what I'm interested in is there's any reflections for each individual teacher in terms of their teaching experience in their classroom practice, what's their stories, and where can you share a little bit about this?
Yeah, and there were. We did a number of focus groups, and also we did a lot. We had a lot of conversations with teachers as we went through that sort of contributed to our understanding of their own experience of the process and technology. They were really struggling with limited functionality in the technology, and what that caused is a level of anxiety. If you're in front of 25 students and you're not sure the technology is going to work, it makes everything a lot more difficult. And so we know that that was a key aspect that they were struggling with. And we understood why, actually. It's hard because they've also got a lot else going on. And they had to assign the time to be able to learn how to do this and integrate the resources that we were giving them on top of their existing planning and teaching time as well. So every time we contributed something new, even if we felt that it was helpful, so whether that was extra professional development, or it was additional meeting, or it was an additional tech tool, or even additional resources, those were still new. We were asking for a commitment of time from the teacher's behalf to be able to familiarize themselves with it. That was in a variety of fashions. That was the majority of feedback we got from teachers. That said, teachers also liked being, and I'm speaking in general terms here, so this is broad brush, but they also really liked being involved in something innovative and forward-looking. They wanted to be included. They wanted to do this together with other teachers, and they found it an enriching professional development opportunity. Those two things were true at the same time. And that's the tension. That we want to do it, it's exciting, we want to involve our teachers, they want to be involved. But at the same time, teachers are time poor, they have a big workload, all teachers experience this. And when we ask them to do something live with students in the classroom, it's stressful. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. I really enjoy your sharing, and you know, there's a lot of sorts of empathetic range, you know, when you are talking about the experience. we also work with teachers in what we call research practice partnerships or design-based implementation research. So all the 6 points that you had and the tension we experience as well. We cannot afford the man in the hole situation because our work is supported. I mean, we are yearly funded by various sorts of funding agencies over time, but essentially we need to be seen as really helping the teachers and not sort of pushing them down. So we can't afford that. And so yes, we have always been focusing on the pedagogy. And also the point about giving the teachers ownership to be creative and so on. So what we did was we can't force them to use a technology. We can introduce, a technology, but at the end of the day, it's up to them. And also what you said about the timeline. The schools need to plan a year ahead, at least, right? So we have to flag to the schools what they would need to be anticipating before September. In fact, preferably before July. So that's the kind of thing. But we also then we can't force them to do something week by week. That's not. But we really want them to innovate. So there is some coercion at some point. So they need to be designing their own innovation curriculum unit. That can be a few lessons or longer, but they choose when it is and how long it is. And and they can sort of have 2 or 3 months to prepare for it, and then they have a show. And so that means they do the creative job. We don't do, and then we do also have the professional development strand, having workshops, but at the same time, what you said in terms of relationship is absolutely important. We have our consultants going to the schools and working with them. And so we are sort of supporting them. They will tell us, this is what I really want to do, but I'm not sure about what, or I need some help with whatever. And then so they are calling the shots. And usually nothing would be absolutely failing. So they learn something from it. And so we want to have incremental successes. So, but I absolutely echo all the things that you mentioned. So fabulous.
I totally agree, and thank you. And we're very much in that place now where we've got very differing levels of how schools participate, how they want to participate, what it looks like. Like it is much more now a school-owned model, with each school choosing the way that they come to the project and implement the work. But yeah, thank you.
But we do still have schools dropping out.
Thank you, Kate, for your really inspiratory study and the research. And there are several points I found really inspiring. We are taking a course on the scalability and sustainability on the innovation used in education. I think your study have several points that list in our study. That's really interesting. I have 2 questions actually. The first one. Well, I observed that you have like 27 schools across the world. I assume there will be like differences for the teachers' needs, right? Yeah. Because they are facing like different situations. How do you like set priority for that?
It's very much just about trying to work with each teacher at their point of need. So you're right, they're all in very different places. Very, very different places in terms of their adoption of technology, but also how long they've been with Nord Anglia. Yeah. Because some of the schools are much newer to the group. as well. How long they've been open at all. So one of our schools, one of the 27, has been open since the summer. So so some of our schools are very new, like in their entirety. So it's very much about going to the school and asking what they would need, and then seeing how we can accommodate that. And some of our schools have now chosen, something I haven't shown you, is some schools want to be much more involved in the research because they feel like they have capacity. Those are our research leader schools. We have 11. Then we have research fellow schools who will be involved in some capacity, but not all. So for example, they might do a curricula that they don't feel matches well our skills framework so well, and they just want to use aspects of our approach. And we're looking to them to help us understand implementation more deeply, but maybe not the impact of the full metacognitive approach. Then we have a couple of schools who are research associates, and those schools want to do something different, but want to stay connected. So those are schools we go to for case studies and comparison. We still have developmental conversations with them. I talked to a couple of them last week. They're very keen to know what we're doing and to think about how it dovetails with their thinking, but they might go in a different direction and then share their approach back. So we're trying to have different layers of participation that means that we can meet the different needs of schools in different contexts, and it's complex.
Yeah. Thank you for answer. Can I have one more questions? You mentioned the systematic change, like you ask for the support from the school leaders, local leaders. I totally agree. If you want the innovation to be sustainable and scalable, you have to, it's not only the business for teachers to learn. I'm just really curious about what kind of support do you ask for the local leaders?
And so before we do anything, we need to, there are lots of different layers.
Okay.
So initially it's about whole organizational buy-in. So are we happy? Is this our vision? Is this our approach? And that happens at a global level. Then we need to go to our regional managing directors and ask if they're happy for us to approach schools in their region. Then we go to each individual principal one by one and talk to them about what they feel their school has capacity to deliver and what they're happy for their teachers to be involved in. Then we need to go to our local DNA champion and talk to them about what the approach might be and how it might be delivered. And then if possible, we go to the teachers themselves, because cascade is a problem. Right? We understand our project really well, but if we've only spoken to somebody for an hour and then they become the messenger, it's difficult for them to know what to say. So actually it's probably a series of at least 7 or 8 conversations and meetings we're at different levels to ensure that everybody understands and can get behind what we're trying to do. And even then, still now, we still feel like there are lots of misconceptions and there are people we'd want to speak to more, and over communication is incredibly important. Over communication, we feel, is that actually if you're a teacher in a school that we spoke to once in September, you probably won't feel like you're communicated with that much. And so it's about as many opportunities for conversation as we can possibly have, as many touch points with our teachers as we can find.
Thank you so much.